call this?
Sure. I am calling the CDA, the Community Development Authority Committee to order on October 20th. It is 5:34 p.m. Do we need a roll call?
Yes, I can do the roll call. Wakely,
I am here.
Cole,
Present.
Oaks,
Here.
Lori,
Here.
Sandoval,
Here.
Crow,
Here.
and Chair Nelson is present. All members of the CDA are present.
How far down do you want me to go to approve minutes?
Sure.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the minutes from the August 14th meeting? None, the minutes will stand.
Okay, now we'll go ahead and let workforce housing.
All right, I am calling the Workforce Housing Committee meeting to order on October 20th at 5:34. We're joining the CDA for a joint session on a couple of topics. Do a roll call attendance.
Wolf,
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Roden.
Here.
Schwartz,
Here.
Bruce,
Here.
Paniro. Here. Wahal, I believe is absent and excused, and Chair Hickle is present. Did I miss any members of workforce housing?
All right, and then we have minutes from our September 15th. Are there any changes to the minutes that anybody wants to present? Or suggest? Okay, minutes are approved. On to the good stuff.
Great. The first item on the agenda is Mayor Kuhn's update on housing, including housing survey and development community goals. And I just wanted to first say, thanks to Mayor Kuhn for attending this meeting. We had a couple of dates that we were looking at, and she said, I'm available for either. I slightly prefer the other one. We picked her less preferred date, and she didn't tell me that it was because today is her birthday. Thanks for attending on your birthday. I will go ahead and start your slideshow. Now let me see, I need to share this, hold on. Out. Computer, sorry, I got two going.
You're doing great. Don't you worry.
Jeremy, are you able to see the first slide?
I can see it. Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Can you guys hear me? Because I have been doing some speeches lately, so I have a, okay, you can hear me, yes? Great. All right, so recently I was honored to speak at a national conference of mayors. I chose housing. I actually gave them 3 different topics. Housing was one of them. And I said, pick whichever works best for the panel. And they selected housing. And my pitch was how Middleton moved from on average 10 houses built a year under prior leadership to over 200 houses built a year, understanding that these are single family and townhomes, but that increasing the supply was a lot of the work that you all do. It is also a lot of the work the staff does. And I did highlight that through this, but just so you know, for this presentation, there is a lot of eyes because it was done in front of other mayors and it is talking about leadership. So this is just going over the city and our amazingness. And it's working together to move from good to great. Next slide. You guys know this information. Thanks. It's the 4% we are of the Dane County population. So what I talked about is that we're tiny and mighty, but in order to meet those goals that we often talk about, which is that supply, we have to do things differently. Next slide. This is where we just talked about vacancy rates. It's a lot of what other major metropolises are dealing, or metropolitan areas are dealing with, which is very low vacancy rates, whether it's rental or homeowner. And I do have to say a special thank you to Abby. She helped me with many of these slides. Next slide. And this is where I talk about that leadership piece, getting from good to great. The story of working together. And we often talk about collaborating. You can't do this as a leader by yourself. You have to talk about the vision. You have to talk about how you see there's a need in the community, and then explain it to the council, to the people at doors, to the people on the committees. And I'm very blessed to have so many great people who not only work with us, but that hear us, and that you all are here at the table. So this is an honor to you as well. Next slide. As an economist, when I was running for mayor in 23, I realized at doors there was a mismatch in supply and demand. And this is where I walk really carefully, because a lot of people at doors just said, please stop building tall apartment buildings. And that is actually not what we heard from everyone, but it was a high, statement made by a lot of people because they saw buildings being built in certain places all at once. And what we realized is that you have to have the tall buildings, because when people move to the county, they land somewhere until they figure out where they want to move. So you can't just stop building tall buildings. You have to do it together, and you take a bifurcated effort. So we did a multi-pronged approach to correct the housing issue in the city, which is that simple mismatch of supply and demand, and that you do both. You build both the homes and the apartment buildings. Next slide. There's a lot of demand going on and talking to those residents. Some families wanted bigger houses and they wanted options readily available on the market. So there simply was no supply at the time. Yet at the time, real estate agents would tell me there are 2 to 3 houses on the market at any given time. Generally 2 of them over $600,000 each. So widows wanted to stay in the city, but they could no longer afford property taxes. So they were sitting in these houses with 3 to 5 bedrooms, and they complained about property taxes, and they love their community. And that's part of where the apartment pivot comes in. A lot of those widows have chosen in the meantime to move into those apartments until their smaller homes are built, and while they clean out their bigger homes, and some are choosing to stay. Empty nesters were wanting starter homes, not for themselves, but for their kids to come back. They now have grandchildren. They want to raise their own kids here. They did their time on the coast or in Chicago, and they want to come back and raise a family. So some talked about lack of reasonable rental prices, and there was no one magic bullet. Next slide. So the supply had 2 main constraints. We have a maturing boundary with neighboring towns and cities. Most of the mayors in the country assumed we were like Fitchburg, which has tons of open space and farmland ready to build on. And they said, oh, it's easy to pivot. I said, actually, we have mature boundaries on 3 lines, on 3 sides. And the 4th one is getting there pretty fast. So that it really isn't an option. And so then the other problem was that we had these long processing times for development. We were noted as one of the worst, if not the worst, in the county. And so 3 to 4 years to get those housing is too long. And what we were thinking is that the developers were telling us what people wanted, which was apartments, and that could be, a misunderstanding or a preference on their side. Next slide. So to increase awareness of demand and supply imbalance, I took the approach as what is within my control as a leader. How do we get information, and can we verify that? So I fully supported the planning director's interest in rewrite of zoning as the plan commission chair at that time. We had many meetings, pre-meetings, reviewed other cities, and chatted on what holds housing back in our city. So blessings to you, Abby, because she had to deal a lot with me and my very curious questions. I audited the TIF for apartment developers over the prior decade to ask them, what do they intend to build? What did they actually build? And is it functioning in the way they envisioned? And part of that was a signal to the system that if you come to us and you ask for TIF, I'm going to continue to ask these questions. Now, technically, I can't call it an audit. It was technically a survey, but it's an audit. I wrote a housing survey for both renters and homeowners, and Abby and her team released that to the city. We had 500 respondents within a week. We learned a lot. And I led internal and external communications to increase stakeholder buy-in. Next slide. So this goes over the TIF apartment developers over a decade. Next slide. So at this time when we made this, and there have been no updates, we had a majority of the developers respond. Next slide. There were some that didn't respond, but they have not come back for more TIF either. Now, when you talk to Bill and his team about finance and if TIF is successful, they go from base value of those, I think there's 12 developments in there, and then the current value. And he's right, you have a significant increase in that development value and that value increment. He is right, it is successful for that reason. But my question was, what did it actually build? What did we get for it? And what do our people, what is that outcome? Next slide. So 11 of the 16 developments responded. So not 12, but 16 developments. The $43 million in TIF for these 16 developments and over 1,500 apartment units built. So then you have them on the other side. Next slide. It talks about vacancies and rented apartments. I will say that Abby and I, after we received these surveys back, a lot of those vacancies suddenly went away because they started to realize we were asking, do you have any vacancies? And so I think sometimes they were using that as a subsidy and waiting for the right person rather than, okay, we have an opening and let's get it on the market. And some of them started doing 1 month free because they said people just weren't coming. And I said, well, then you change the price or you give away, free parking for a year or a month of rent. And so that's what they did. And those vacancies went away. Now, the interesting thing, why should I stay or should I go? Stay, 82% noted the reason as location. They love living in Middleton. And when they leave, if they leave for less than 10 miles, so think Cross Plains or Wanakee or Madison, it's usually cost or roommate issues. Well, if you can afford it with your roommate, say they're your significant other and you break up, you can't afford living in Middleton anymore. We can't fix that. We're not going to go around and do marriage counseling or, divorce, whatever. But if they're leaving for roommate issues, that's a valid reason in my world. If they're moving for more than 10 miles, 82% note that they have a job change. If they're moving for the coast or to Chicago, we cannot change that. And 73% noted that they purchased a home, which we want people to go from renting to homeowning, but they're moving more than 10 miles from Middleton, which meant at that time they couldn't either find a supply to buy or they couldn't afford it. Next slide.
Excuse me, can I ask, are these data from the resident survey or was it reported by the?
This was from the developers. Thank you. Actually, yeah, this was the developers because I wanted a comparative analysis and then ask the people. I wanted the developer's perspective and then I wanted the actual people who rent and own. I wanted their perspective. Next slide. So this is then the housing survey. Most of them were homeowners, which is what we expect. 80% are single family homeowners and 18% were condos. That's a good mix, which shows that our staff really did a reach out to find people who were not just single family homeowners. Of the renters, 67% were in complexes that I consider large with over 30 apartments. But again, that's a good mix. We did have 1/3 with the 4-plex or 20-plex or less. Next slide. I really enjoyed this portion of the survey. Why I chose to live here. 1 is safe neighborhoods. 2, school district and parks. 4 was community and 5 was commute. So that's why they move to Middleton. And the reason that safe neighborhoods is really great to see here is that we do a lot of outreach with our emergency responders. And just last week, they were named in the top 8 in Wisconsin for people moving to a safe location. Middleton was one of 8 cities in the state, according to, I think it's Atlas. It was a new 8 list. In fact, we were listed as number 1. So if people are moving to the metro, that's what they're looking at. But the reason they chose to stay here, according to these 500 respondents, was again, the safe neighborhoods, the community parks, it's walkable, and friends and family. And the reason that this gets interesting is a lot of times when people move to Middleton, they tell their friends. Next slide. And that's this part of living in our community. You plan to continue to live in the community? 89% agree. Now, at this time, when I asked this question in 24, I expected it to be high and majority. I did not expect it to be this high. And part of that reason is when we have a city council meeting and there's something on the agenda that is upsetting to people, this is something you'll see is I am so upset with you. Why would people move here? Well, it turns out they love it here. And in fact, 87% of people recommend a friend to live in your neighborhood. So not even in the city, but I love my neighborhood so much, you should see this house for sale. I can't think of a higher compliment for the city. Next slide. So it turns out 45% of people prefer walking, 22% prefer biking, and 8% prefer the bus. We all know in January, people will drive. It's snow on the ground, it's icy, but when it's about half are walking or trying to walk, then this is where we pivoted in leadership and talking to the directors of all the different departments in the city about encouraging people to walk and bike is because this is what people are moving here for, and this is why people are staying. So that's why you see that school safety corridor coming online and making sure that when we do development, it's on the transit corridor and people can get those kids to school. Next slide. So 13% of workers in the city of Middleton who are working work remote for the coast. So when people say, who can afford these luxury apartments? Well, it may not be the locals, or it's locals who are getting out of their larger house and looking to downsize. They can afford it. But it turns out these remote workers for the coast are used to paying New York, San Francisco, Boston prices. So, when we have criticism of apartments going up and who can afford them, there is demand. And that was a surprise in that survey. So when the developers are citing demand for these luxury apartments, there is truth to that. One of my questions was, how do we weave teleworkers from the coast into our Good Neighbors city fabric? How do we keep them long term? And how do we work with leaders on community event planning? Because maybe we do, outreach and we say people who are driving on this road will see a sign. Well, if we have commuters and they're biking to the store and back, they may not see those signs. So at this point, this was an interesting pitch. 5% of single family homeowners wanted larger houses for growing families, and 8% wanted smaller houses, those empty nesters and widows. And you can't just say, okay, people who've lived here 40 years, your kids are gone, please exit your house tomorrow so these families can move in. You had to find a way to seed the concept. And so we started working as part of our media outreach, but also communications was, hey, you know what? We have these great new houses being built, the smaller lot size from zoning, which our plan commission has approved, consider these opportunities. And, that actually created a vacancy for families who could then buy a house that's, maybe 5 bedrooms, but not brand new, and they could fix over time. So they were more affordable. So how do you get those families to immediately move? You cannot, but that's where those apartments and vacancies came into play, because as those apartments go up, then some of our empty nesters can move in, they are cleaning out their house, they're putting their houses on the market, and families are buying them. So next slide. If working together, I worked with city staff to move forward on those zoning updates. City leadership met in year 1 routinely to plan internal communications and leadership visioning on housing. And city leadership met in year 1 and 2 routinely to plan external communications on housing, including media outreach on both survey results, as well as outreach to developers in the spirit of moving forward together. So we were just trying to find reasonable paths forward. Now remember, this is for mayors and other cities and states. A lot of them are just starting down this path. So we just talked about how, the smaller footprint makes it because you're not buying, say, 1/4 of an acre, you're buying a smaller lot, allowing those ADUs. We did reduce Airbnb because that put some houses back on the market. And what we did not expect, and I was surprised when Abby informed us, is that we have the most progressive zoning ordinance in the state of Wisconsin. When we went to publish, that was not the goal. We were just trying to find a reasonable path forward. And that is what all of you have nurtured. Next slide. So we do quarterly leadership meetings across all departments. The concept is fly in formation. It's a strategic resource usage and sharing the vision of more single-family homes in balance with those apartment construction. We did routine meetings with planning and public works directors and staff to find pain points and opportunities to make checklists for customers, which are the developers, to have a full application. I can tell you, and Abby might have to correct me, but I think we, as a Viridian, are under a year in getting them from concept to starting to move dirt. That would have taken us a lot longer under past. So this is the reflection of staff of coming together and finding ways forward. And I'm really proud of the checklist made and streamlined permitting for faster, more efficient approvals. Next slide. The last piece, Abby was very, very patient, and we met with developers individually to hear their experience. Now, sometimes I will be honest, they would talk to us about things that were done 20 years ago, and we'd have to say, okay, but that was then, this is now. And then we would listen to them, and what we were listening for was trends and ways to move things forward. We asked hard questions. What do we do well? What could we do better? What is holding your current project back from getting projects shovel ready? And after a 1 year of these quarterly check-ins, the city pivoted to monthly, once a month Zoom calls. They're voluntary for developers for 30 minutes to share. We share for 15 minutes any city updates if we have staff changes, especially in 2025. Sean Stowski retired. We had our HR director retire. Yes, Luke, the stormwater is new. Ben is new. Abby's team had some retirement, and then we had some promotions, which was wonderful. But being in these new rules, then developers heard all at once what the changes are, so they're not all surprised. And we would do it in 15 minutes, and then we would let them talk, each for 1 to 2 minutes. Where are they? What are they waiting on? And I remember Abby and I were chatting after one, and someone had thought that they were waiting on a committee meeting, to move an agenda item. And it turns out they had missed the committee meeting and it had already passed, and they could have been moving already on the project. So it was just a simple communication issue. But at that meeting, they shouted out that that's what they were waiting on. And Abby just quietly called them afterwards and said, you're good. You can move forward. So hot dog, we're moving on. We paused for build out season. And what we were really trying to do was, especially with the new staff, make sure that they were all getting their needs met. And then we returned in the fall because we do hit a ground freezing in mid-November-ish. So much better communications with clear support and regular check-ins. It also has a nice transparency piece because it's no longer developers thinking that someone heard something first. It's literally 30 minutes. And if they can't make it, they can send the intern to take notes. Next slide. So this is where I talked in July. We had 765 units of single family housing approved at that time, adding an additional 3,000 units being considered, obviously not always right away, but those subdivisions are being built. Red Tail Ridge, Bell Farm, and Pheasant Crossing. And then Middleton Shores is under deconstruction. So is 6300 University, and Conservancy Bend was under construction at the time or scheduled for that. So we had some redevelopments, and I was just talking about, because a lot of people thought we were just building into farmland. And so this was a good way for mayors to understand that we're doing some deconstruction and some new green, into greenfield. Next slide. And the last one, it shows that these are the mayors across the county, and that their issues with housing is our issues with housing. It's not something we can fix on our own, which brings us back to one of those early slides that said we were 4% of the county. We have to do it together, and we have to share best practices. So this was a summit in which we all spoke on a panel, what's working, what's not working, and we were talking to realtors across the county. And with that, I am done. So it was also well received, just so you know, at dinner that night, I could not get a word in edgewise at my table, and I could hear chatter across the 150 mayors talking about TIF audits and how do you start those, and whoever thought of doing an audit. And they were like, how did you think to make an audit? I'm like, well, I'm a federal employee. We audit pen purchases. We audit, you know, how much lighting we use. We audit everything. And so, you know, just reaching out to those who have received funding from the city through TIF and ask them, how was the product? What did you do with it? How's it going today, whether it's 1 year later or 6 years later? And did you get to where you're going? So that we can constantly fine tune. And that is what I've brought to the city of Middleton. So thank you.
I just say really quickly, I appreciate the props on the zoning ordinance, but I have to give credit to Daphne Shu, who is our city planner and
Thank you,
zoning
Daphne.
administrator, and she and her predecessor in this role did most of the work on the zoning ordinance. And with regard to the statement about the most progressive, I would not be able to assess and evaluate that myself because I am not familiar with all of the zoning codes across the state. I think that.
I think you were quoting the consultant, so
I-
my apologies.
Yeah, I think Vandewall, who helped us do the project, they do a lot of zoning ordinances across the state, and they said this is the most progressive one that we have worked on, and then Daphne's predecessor, Mark, cited that this makes it one of the most progressive zoning ordinances in the state. So we are very
Good enough for
excited,
me.
very excited for that, and I know the zoning ordinance, there have been a couple of different like best practices and housing checklists, so we've actually been able to go through and say, did we meet this with the code? Yes. And so we are stacking up pretty well. There are maybe still some things that we could do, and I think those are drafted now into the Affordable Housing Action Plan recommendations for additional changes even that we could make to make our code more friendly for houses.
And piggybacking on that, even if we were the most progressive at that moment or one of the top 3, there are others who are now modeling after what Middleton is doing, and you should take that with honor. You know, especially the mayors in the county will ask me, how did you do it? Where did you guys start? You know, and I always tell them to call Abby and her team. This isn't my zoning. This was something that was in works when I stepped into the role as mayor. But it comes with foresight, whether that was the prior council, whether that was Abby and her team, whether it was all of them. I say that because as we are landing towards that affordable housing piece, which is why you all are coming together, the fact that your zoning is in a place where we can do more things, it is more flexible to those things. That is going to allow you to be more creative or do more projects, because under the former zoning, and I know it's not right, but I always say you have to buy a quarter lot to build a house, whatever large piece of land it was.
Yep.
That would already be a very high price. So the fact that we can add more houses in, say, an acre than we could before, that's already getting us to that long-term goal of keeping more supply. But I'm just so excited for all the things that you will bring forward. And I'm so happy that you're all willing to be here and be a part of it. So, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for Mayor Kuhn?
Well, it went over 3 minutes, but I did hit it with 1 second remaining when I presented to the mayors, and it was quite a mad dash. I talked like in double speed. But I told them, don't read every slide, your staff can, because the mayors there were like Memphis
Yeah.
and Cleveland and Phoenix and LA. These were not tiny and mighty. And when I found out and I was first up to talk, I was like, oh, jeepers, I'm about to tell LA how to run their city. This is gonna go well, you know, but a lot of what I did hear from them was they were also jealous because we were small enough that we could do interesting things. We really could try new things and do pilots. And so even though we're tiny and mighty, they were actually happy for us that we could pivot and we could try new things and get our goals moving. So be very proud.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
in on your birthday.
I hope you're going to celebrate.
Cupcakes.
Enjoy. So the next item on the joint agenda is update on housing strategy and finance subcommittee and housing education and outreach subcommittee, including updated affordable housing plan timeline. So we'll start with the housing strategy and finance subcommittee and turn it over to Jen.
In your packets presented today, you'll find the draft, our first draft from the strategy and finance subcommittee of an affordable housing action plan. I first want to thank Alder Haniro for putting pen to paper originally and really compiling a lot of very good ideas pulled from our conversations, pulled from the Dane County Regional Housing Strategy, pulled from other communities in the area. All these have then also examples from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, our comprehensive plan, Sun Prairie housing strategies are in the mix here, more so than other neighboring communities. And the committee has then spent several meetings working through to reach this draft. We have proposed vision, mission, values, as well as how many priorities did we land on here?
I don't remember the number, but I should also mention that this subcommittee met on Tuesday of last week and we edited and revised the document, but the version in your packet is the one from the prior meeting.
Okay,
Because I didn't have enough time to like make the edits make sense to put in the packet on Thursday. My apologies.
no worries. So, and I can explain a little bit more about how that process worked. We did hammer out 5 strategies and then included another list of recommendations. So the top strategies there were no change to that. What we did at our last meeting was really go through and do our final cleanup of what is our priority within each strategy. We are pending prioritization until which time we can combine this with the education committee's pieces. And that was another thing. So I'm glad you don't have the latest draft in there, Abby, because I think that's where we left it. We wanted to see cleaned up and combined. Yep. So that will be our next step, is then to meet with, are we planning a joint subcommittee meeting then to?
I think we were going to,
I think part of it is this meeting.
Yeah, part of it is this meeting. Yep.
yes, so I think.
Schedule on the last page.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that for the subcommittees, we were gonna have them each meet on their
Yep.
normal date in November, but our staff would have at least our first attempt at merging the 2 documents for review by the subcommittees. And then we would meet jointly again with CDA and workforce housing on December 3rd.
Thank you for the reminder. I apologize. I have a lot of other projects with a lot of crazy timelines happening right now, so. So then we will reconvene. Once that's been, we're able to prioritize things a little bit more and tighten up even more so. And then we can move into decision making.
Yep, and we are on schedule. Based on the initial schedule that was outlined, we're on track.
Yeah. But thank you again, Alder Haniro, for the big lift of getting that pen to paper, and then really helped us really deep dive and identify what was most meaningful and what maybe could be done by other groups or staff are already working on, or what applies most to Middleton.
Can I just add that the 4 of the strategies, the first 4 are identical to what the Dane County Regional Housing Strategy lists as their 5. We did not choose the 5th one to carry forward. If you scroll back up, Abby, it'll show in red. Keep going all the way up. We decided increase the overall number of housing units was not part of our goal with affordable housing, so we took that one off the list. And instead, number 5 for us is just supporting the implementation of the plan. And then number 6 is the get the parking lot for everything else.
And we worked.
It is very long. Well,
Well,
things are being done already.
yeah,
Yeah, so.
and that was helping, like, and to the point about removing 20 more units, yes, in the big picture, that can shift the market, make things potentially more affordable, or, you know, especially NOAA housing can expand that. However, with this fund, with this funding, with this strategy, we really needed to keep our focus on what we can do right now and not scope creep into other groups' roles and.
So a lot of the initial ideas that were in other sections of the first draft were moved to the other recommendations, because while they might be good policy goals and things that city wants to put forward, or the CDA or Workforce Housing Committee wants to have as a goal, they don't belong in the fund, or things that we would spend the Affordable Housing Fund on.
Five for the fund and 6 for the everything else outside of the fund.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's maintained as a list, just so we don't lose sight of those things, but not as our action plan.
Right.
Because, right, as you can see, there are 4 things that are the responsibility of common council. There's responsibility of the plan commission, and we're not, you know, it's not really our job to be telling them what to do.
Well, and there should be a new number 5, which will be the education
Mhm.
priorities. Basic priorities.
New number 6.
Number 6.
Well, I would say maybe number 5, because wouldn't it be part of the Affordable Housing Action Plan?
Yeah.
So supporting it, something after that.
Mm.
It doesn't.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And as our staff works to kind of try to merge the 2 documents back, and also we're doing some formatting and things like that. We're seeing like there might be some things that we might want to recommend combining. So for example, when we're talking about future things that the common council might want to do, we might want to combine these 2 as an example. We wouldn't take anything out of the work that the subcommittees have done, and what we talked about this morning, with Daphne and Scott, is that if there are anything that, when we're kind of trying to repackage and reformulate this, if there's anything that we view as like a major change, like we're recommending taking something out of the plan entirely, we're gonna write a separate memo and have like a detailed list of things that we want to make sure they get flagged, so you can review them and agree or disagree. But it's just, once we're putting the pieces together, they're just like deciding which program buckets things fit into and trying to flesh out more information about the programs. There may be things that will need to change, but we're trying to make sure that everything that's in this document would be included in the repackaged version. We move on to the update from housing, education, and outreach.
Yeah, the education outreach was a little bit of move the rocket ship while it's on, as we were trying to figure out what we were gonna do. So now that document, I think, is coming together. And working to say, okay, these are the things we should talk about. What we have in the current draft is kind of so far. There's, I think, well, a couple of parts to it, but first is articulating the problem in different ways to explain, you know, why do any of this, and why uniquely in Middleton. And then there's other parts in here about terms that people might not be unfamiliar with, that we'll add from previous document, other things that are in there. But then the second part of it is then okay, we're gonna do outreach what is it specifically that we want to do and who specifically do we want to talk to? So we've got a little bit of like, who would we talk to, and then objectives for what we want to do with each one of those groups for different constituencies in the city. Builders, developers, council, the mayor, people, teachers, all that stuff. So think we have pretty good coverage as far as the different groups that are out there, but if you review this and you think of like, oh, what about, you know, this group or that group, let us know and we'll try to work it into some concrete things about what we want to do with outreach. So for example, one is like with the school district, you know, a lot of our learning with Way Forward is that the school district sees a lot of the impact of not stable housing with the kids in our community. So the school district is kind of the front lines for identifying those challenges with our kids. So what are ways that we need to message this to the school so they know what we're wanting to do and what's available for resources. Way Forward also one of the groups that we need to work with. They're doing a ton of work in this space.
I read, you know, in preparation for the meeting, I read your draft. I was really impressed. I thought you guys did a great job.
But Daphne was able to pull all the slides from like the 2.5 years of presentations that we have all been, you know, learning from. And we like pulled out the greatest hits to put in here for like the big squeeze. Like whenever we talk about it, it's always the big squeeze where like to Emily's point about like, you know, you can create these market conditions that create more housing. That's good, and you should do that. And we have done that. So the point about like dropping more housing from the initiative, I think makes sense. And we say like, because we did those things, like those basics are done. Now we need to talk about this other half of the community that market will never or never get on us. We still deserve this community. We need this. I refer back to previous chart because there are teachers, because there are police officers. Communities that they serve in. I think the next steps for it is, I think getting the drafts as full forward as they can be. The outreach and education committee wants whatever latest copy we have of the plan so that we can work in those specific components and probably do a bigger FAQ and glossary on what are the kinds of things that we're doing, like what is a TIF? Somebody, it's like,
Yes.
what is a TIF?
Yeah.
Yes.
How does a TIF
Good luck.
work? Yeah, exactly. So we've got to figure out how do we explain it.
1,000 words or less.
Yeah. What's the tweet about how a TIF works? And why, what this money could be used for, right? This is a lot of money that we're talking about potentially. And why wouldn't we spend it on something else versus housing? How it works in Wisconsin.
And so staff are working to combine these two,
Mm-hmm.
correct? And in November, at our individual meetings, subcommittee meetings, we'll review the combined draft. Do we need to, we had talked briefly about tapping a few members of each subcommittee to be on a rapid response writing group if needed, if there's work that still needs to be done before our December meeting, would it be prudent to name 2 or 3 people from each subcommittee just in case there's a need to get together more than just at our individual subcommittees?
So I like the idea, just in thinking about our staffing resources. I don't think that we'll be able to tap anyone before the subcommittees meet in November. So we, like I said, we met today. We spent like the first half of our day together working on the table of contents and outline and kind of starting to assign out to the 3 of us who's gonna take different sections while also trying to keep the document maybe 30 pages or less.
Yeah.
Just thinking again about like the flow of the document. So Alan talked about the big squeeze and a lot of the charts and graphs and data that the Housing Outreach and Education Subcommittee has put together. We're envisioning those kind of being at the front of the document because that explains the why we're doing this piece before we go into priorities. So it's just like kind of figuring out the flow. I don't think we are gonna really be cutting it close, but we are committed to getting you a draft at the subcommittee meetings that happen in early mid-November. So maybe we wait until those meetings and that review happens, and then if we want the rapid writing team, we would have them discuss that and decide who would be on that at the November meeting, and then that group could work from, for sure, from November to December.
That sounds good. Okay, maybe even continuing on, and, getting ready for the presentation. to council.
Yes.
That sounds great. Excited.
I do think the outreach education document, steal all of the why and the other stuff. The plan for outreach, I think, can remain separate, right? Because that's just.
Yeah.
what
Yeah, it
we're
would be
doing.
a great appendix.
Yep.
This is just for us. But the why and stuff,
Yeah.
we're merging that into the file.
Yes.
If we can.
Well,
Yes.
and also to have
Such
such
a
a
nice punchy page.
priority number 6 with some, like very targeted actions, very specific actions that we're recommending be undertaken. So maybe you can sum up quickly, just a couple of sentences, what the business outreach is or engagement and individuals, their engagement, and have like 3 or 4 priorities,
Mhm.
strategies to include as the new number 6 on
Mhm.
education and outreach.
Outreach summary.
Like what do we envision the city or specifically a new housing planner or a communications manager doing?
Yeah.
With support from the affordable housing extension. Fund. Which the latest estimate from Bill Burns, 10.3 to $10.8 million.
Pretty significant when you look at what other
But
communities across the country are
I was thinking,
doing.
what did Madison start with? It was like.
Well, I don't know what Madison started with, but I just remember being on webinars where people were like, well, we had $147,000. And I was like, ooh, should I?
It's a
Pension will
good
be
problem
good.
to have.
Yeah, yeah. We have so cool. It is, it's very cool.
Daphne, the only other chart that we didn't put in it was the recent fee impact study that you said that had a really good affordability breakdown of
Oh,
all
yes.
municipalities.
Yeah, I think we were gonna send that out to everyone. The Madison Area Builders Association had like a fee study that they recently did, and they have like one page for Middleton, one page for Fitchburg, so it's like a little bit easier to compare across all municipalities. So I think we can send that out to everyone else as well. And yeah, we could probably
Did that go out?
No, I
No.
don't think,
no, I
maybe
think I
just
might
the sub,
to a couple of you guys.
Okay,
who were
yeah, yeah.
asking, but yeah.
Are we able to get? Cause this median sales price graphic is really speaks volumes. Do we know if there's updated for like 24?
Yeah, I
Cause
don't,
I know they just reported that there wasn't that much of an increase over the past year, but 24 would probably be a lot higher even than 22.
yeah. They don't have an updated like graphic that looks exactly like that, but it could be pretty easy, I think, to find, that information and get it in a map. It just won't look as nicely presented as what the consultants did for the RHS, but yeah, I can get a map of something similar to that.
Only other thing wanted to just discuss a little bit is when I worked with other affordable housing developers and they made presentations to neighborhoods, they were most successful if they could personalize the presentation as addressing certain people's needs, like teachers and or police officers, so forth, so that people could picture, okay, yes, these are working people, they're part of our community. We're not inviting problems into our city or our neighborhood. And if we could kind of strengthen that aspect of the outreach or the presentation, maybe even to council, talk about, here's where our teachers' salaries are, this is what they can afford, you know, and same with police officers or firefighters. I think that would help our case when we.
Amazing observation, good idea.
Well, and even drilling down to folks who staff our grocery store,
Yeah,
our
absolutely. Yeah,
restaurants, and
yeah.
right, like even lower on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Or state employees who.
Here's their salary ranges.
And that is something that the education outreach has, like, we had our intern over the summer compile a lot of those, so they have that in their document.
Yeah, it was a really nice table in one of the drafts, and maybe it got lost in a comment, but we had, yeah, they had like looked on LinkedIn postings or like the Indeed postings for jobs and the compensation in Middleton, with the comparables to. Yeah.
We could ask our state's labor market information team for like wages based on location as well. I'll ask Heather.
Yeah, one of the things we learned at the building blocks workshop was that skilled tradespeople are coming from, far away. They can't afford to live in Dane County, and they're getting paid a lot to come all that distance, and sometimes they'll say, no, I'm not coming, because it's just not worth it. So being able to have housing available to those folks as well.
We have enough supply side constraints with the cost of raw materials. We don't need it with
Yeah.
the people who actually
Exactly.
build them.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
There is a outreach opportunity on Thursday. I think there's an event at the library.
Mhm.
Is it?
2 outreach opportunities on Thursday. Right. Talk about the library.
I gotta, the library one's at 6:30.
Yes,
And Way Forward is gonna be there as well as,
Daphne.
Daphne.
yeah, I think I'll be there too.
Libraries hosting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's also the senior housing tour at Oak Ridge Senior Living Tour at 3:00.
And for the Oak Ridge tour, Scott is taking registrations for that. Scott, do you have any update on whether we still have space available for that one?
Yep, we do still have space available. So if you're interested in attending, please just shoot me an email so I can take your SVP and know that you'll be there.
And we just meet there, correct?
Yes.
So the library information is on the library's website. I know the school district has promoted it. We've sent it out. Way Forward has been promoting it. I expect there'll be pretty good attendance.
Yeah, I met with the group on, I think it was Thursday last week, and they said they'd already have on the TV something. People registered, and I think there's only 100 total spots that can fit in the Archer room at the library, so if you guys are interested, it's, yeah.
Get there early.
Yeah,
And they do say registration.
Required.
It will also be live streamed, which is great because I cannot make it sadly, so I will be able to watch it on the library YouTube channel after the fact.
I don't know if it will be there after the fact. I think they were just live streaming it like as it was going on.
Mm.
Mhm.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, because I don't know if the library does recordings for when they live stream in the Archer room.
Maybe they
Something about the
can.
technology there.
Yeah, that would be good.
But if it's on the, I mean, if it's on the YouTube, maybe you just have to go to the live.
The live link.
Yeah. We'll see, yeah.
Yeah, I
That
will.
was, yeah, something we discussed, so.
Scott, is the event that's happening at Oak Ridge Senior Housing, is that on the Dane County Housing Strategy website?
I believe it's on the website. I also forwarded an email that had the details to it to everybody on the committee. So if you don't have a copy of that or can't find it, let me know and I can shoot it over to you.
Try to pull it up, I'm sorry. I am not seeing it.
I got it. I can screen share in a second.
Got it? Okay. I,
I just sounded email that
just
this
got it,
afternoon.
great. Pretty cool. Thanks, Scott.
It's an unfortunate misspelling of my last name, but other than that, all the details are correct.
He's very proud. Proud of that misspelling.
And this is a project that the city had quite a bit of involvement with. In addition to rezoning the land, the city also provided tax increment financing for this project to make it affordable and help close the gap.
All right, any other discussion items? Otherwise, the workforce housing committee will adjourn and let CDA get on with their. So we get.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Screen.
See you there. Thank you. Bye, Ben.
Bye-bye.
Be fine. It'll only be a few minutes. Probably only be a few minutes.
Yes. We can always patch in the walls, like only one of them. They can. Very good. It's. You too. Same. So funny. Well, just like the real. Thank you. Good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. CDA, good? Settled in? All right. Our next agenda item is the recommended approval of the form for the CDA event sponsorship support. And in the packet, there's a draft of that.
Yes, and there's actually, I'm sorry for doing this to you all, but we also have a redlined version that I'm going to share screen on. So, okay, so for those of you who are in the room, you have a redlined hard copy
Oh,
on
okay.
Zoom. I can just quickly walk you through this. So I think the CPA, we had it to a really good place that we were pretty much good with publishing the event sponsorship form or grant application form. Since the last time you spoke, our new placemaking planner has started with the city. That's Jolyn Rhoda. I can't remember if you all had a chance to meet Jolyn yet, but she comes to us from the Arts and Literature Laboratory, which she co-founded. And also was the co-executive director of that organization until she left her position to come to the city. And so she has a lot of experience with programming and grant making. So I had her take a look at the form and she recommended some changes. Primarily, she wants to make sure it's really easy and fillable. So right now we're showing you a static PDF, but before we would publish this, it would be like a really easy to fill out form. She also had some other changes that are redlined here. So she wanted to reference, the city's approved visual identity guide, which is like the policy for how we use logos for different organizations.
That's
she-
really helpful. That was a good flag.
Yes,
Which
for
one?
sure.
Which
So rather than just saying include the CDA logo or name on all promotional materials, she referenced as outlined in the sponsorship agreement and in accordance with the City of Middleton Visual Identity Guide. So that's something that our communications manager drafted for us for essentially like proper use of city
Mhm.
logo and naming. And then she added this to say applicants are required to complete the post-event report form within 30 days of conclusion, in addition to providing the estimated attendance and a brief narrative, what can be improved in the future. I think she's thinking it's gonna simplify the process for recipients if we just have a form that they fill out so
Mhm.
that
I love it.
they know exactly what information we're looking for. I also love that as somebody who's had to like just put these together on the fly and not really know what they're looking for.
Well, then it can become part of their. So then we have this catalog of their reports or evaluation. That when folks apply again, it's either they can provide it as part of their examples or we can refer back
Yes,
if we have concerns or questions or.
call?
and it'll be much easier for us to compare like events if if we're asking for the same standard information.
Mhm.
So, that's good at it.
So she's developing these forms then?
Yes,
Okay.
she is. So that would be, we don't quite need to worry about that yet.
Mhm.
But probably in the next couple of months, I'll bring that forward. You all can take a look at that as well. So she wants to know that the report must include the final budget and how the funds were spent. And then she would have an online URL created for the application. And where to upload supporting documents,
Mhm.
completing the event budget form in a fillable PDF, itemizing all expected costs, noting costs that will be funded through the CDA grant and funding to support the event. And then a maximum of 5 work samples from past events, which may include photos, links to a video, example marketing materials, or letters of support. Then also providing her contact information for any assistance with filling out the application. We do still want to make this as easy of a lift as possible, especially recognizing smaller returns are likely applying for these. She had an ad for the title, the contact person, list all the years that the event has received a CDA sponsorship and the amounts. If you do not receive this funding or only partial funding, will the event move forward and what changes will be made? Did the event have a deficit last year? And if so, what changes have been made to prevent a deficit this year? And then instead of just describe your organization, she fleshed it out. Tell us about your organization's mission, history, and programming. Still keeping a max of 150 words. Describe your event, including its background and purpose, the intended audience, key personnel, timeline, marketing plan, tourism potential if applicable, and how the city will benefit or how the event will benefit city residents. She increased the maximum word count to 500 just because of more.
Yep.
Past. Provide any additional information, how you will use the funds, expected cost, and sources of funds.
So I think with this one, budget narrative might need more than 150 words, like 200, 250.
Okay.
I mean, it's for some, it might be really simple where you're using this grant to pay for this entertainer or whatever. Like it could be one particular line item, but for others, there may be multiple reasons for this grant. Some may go to certain
That makes sense,
Yeah.
and it is a max, so.
Yep.
If they don't use.
But if they need a robust budget narrative to come, yeah,
That would give them the
Yeah.
space. Okay, so we'll increase that to 250.
that's still hardly any words, so.
We'll see if it works. Reevaluate. And then there she just updated her contact.
I think it's generous that we are suggesting that a paper copy could be submitted, but I think accessibility still, right?
Yeah, I don't like paper, so nobody will ever take us up on that, but yes. They can.
One thing I'm wondering about guidelines or like having some kind of contingency language, because I think, right, folks are gonna maybe apply before they're submitting for their special event permits and amplified sound. I would not want us to be in a position where we have granted funds and then they don't get those permits for whatever reason. And can't have the, like, so I think like funds are contingent on like all the other city requirements. Like we can award, but in order for them to receive those funds, they have to demonstrate that they've met all of our other all the other planning requirements.
Okay,
So that way we could, if an organization doesn't meet all of those, then we don't release the funds to them and we've got more.
okay. So something like, should it be like where they have to check off, I understand that? Okay,
So you may need to be part of the signature page. And we'd want to reference the ordinances of what they need to comply with. So more than just the unspent funds, but also that they will also meet all the city requirements for the event.
okay.
Yep. And if they can't, then the funds will be either won't be released or will be returned, right? That might be a Matt question too, for a little bit.
Yeah, we should probably just copy this whole thing over to him and have him take a look.
I would recommend that as well. But if we are going to have a deadline of the 31st, my question becomes, what does our timeline for implementation look like? Because we'll need to get the word out and like, what is that is it press release? Is it social media? Is it notifying all the organizations that have applied in the past?
Yeah,
But also wanting to, it might be Middleton's best kept secret of funding, so other organizations might be interested to know about this, so.
do you think we should change the deadline to the end of January?
It is the end of January.
Oh, it is already the end of January. Okay, never mind.
So I think maybe it's what staff feel like a doable timeline is.
Yeah.
Does that allow enough time for, like, if someone is sort of thinking about maybe we'll do a fall event, would they have those details in January? I'm not really involved in event planning, so I don't know how far ahead those things go. But
I can tell you, we've certainly organized a lot that we wouldn't have known by January of what is needed.
Should it be more like,
like end of March or something?
I was thinking,
But we were worried about the early part of the year events.
Yeah, I think the CDA wanted to have like the application open where they could allocate the first batch. But it is possible that we would get, 5 applications in the first cycle. I think the intent was we would keep it open, but the initial funding deadline for review, for the primary review that would be done by the CDA would happen early in the year. It's possible that there might still be $2,500 that's not allocated, so somebody could still submit an application after the fact, but I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Should we?
all right, I see you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hi, Katie. Hi, everybody. Thanks. First of all, I love this. I love how much work has gone into it and the refinement. I think it's so good. I just was wondering, kind of as the discussion has gone since I stuck my hand up, if we want to, whether we want in this first year explicitly to reserve some proportion of the funding for late applications, or just say that we'll have another round of solicitations if money
Yeah.
isn't spent in the first round.
Yeah, I wonder if we should split the- our pot in half.
Until
And
people
do-
get used to it, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then anything left from the first half of the year goes into the full pot for the remainder of the year?
So would we, in theory, spend down to nothing if we got the applications? But then that gets to the thing that we've had before where somebody comes in later and the money is gone.
I wonder if we have it based on the date of the event, because we want events spread out through the year, so, you
Yeah.
know, getting, allocating all the money to events that are for June. So I
So,
don't know
but
if there's
then, yeah, does that cut it too close for people who have bigger or more complex budgets if they won't know until the second half of the year whether they get our money or not? I don't know.
One option could be to, because it's $7,500, that in the first batch, you would expect to allocate 2/3 of it. 5,000, because most
Yeah.
of the events that we're funding are the same every year. So then that would still leave 2,500 for other stuff that comes in later. And maybe if there are 2 applications that aren't funded in the first batch, we could, if they're later in the year, we could hold them and have them considered with a second batch. So if it's January 31st, maybe we should do plus 6 months for the second batch, or is that getting too late? I don't know.
Well, the January 31st could be for events through June 30th. And maybe it's half the pot. And then for those that are applying for July through December 31st, it could be due like May something for the second pot. And if the first pot isn't used by then, like if we have anything left over, it would go towards that second pot.
I do feel like we do have a lot of events that kind of bunch up in the second half of the summer, fall, and then the holiday season. I don't know if that makes a difference.
I think it would really, this might only really affect like new applications, because if we're notifying past applicants, they have already been told we're working on this, and they also would just base it off their last year's budget. I mean, they really could have, it could really just be a framework. It doesn't, it's it's a proposed budget. It's not a final budget necessarily. So they should be able to use last year's numbers.
So I'm sorry, so you're proposing, folks in the room, that you would do, the first tranche of funding could go to events that span the whole year or not? Or only events through May or June or whatever?
That's what I think could work. So January 31st is the deadline for those that are having events before June 30th.
And then, but then we would not necessarily want to allocate 2/3 of the budget to that first part of the year, because I'm kind of thinking that 2/3 of the money usually gets spent not in that part of the
Yeah,
year.
so we could do half maybe. And then anything that doesn't get allocated would go towards the second half of the year.
Do you have kind of a historical record of
Yes.
how much money went out for events in the
Quinn raised his
first year?
hand.
Say it again.
Quinn raised his hand.
Oh, thank you. Quinn,
Oh,
is-
okay.
oh, sorry.
So I'm gonna try to. So, okay, so this is 2025. So of these events, the ones that would fall in the first half of the year are Art Walk
Right.
and Pride.
Just those two.
Yes. I think summer fun. Maybe like 1 or 2 weeks, depending on when we decide to start it, but mostly the latter half.
But that still works, right? Because if we haven't spent
It just
that
moves
first
forward.
half, it just moves.
Yeah,
You'd have a bigger pot.
but that way it's fair for both sides of the
Oh,
year.
that's true. That's right. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, and I think we could, as we're discussing whether to award something, we probably would reference this and say, oh, we have to remember that we have these other events coming up. And,
Yeah.
it's not like required that we spend all 50%.
Right. Right.
Makes sense.
And we're keeping our cap at 2,000, which, what's our max budget going to be? Is it the same requested as last year?
It's 7,500.
Same, okay.
So then, okay, so half for events through the end of June or carry over to the second tranche, July on. And when would you want to review the second pot app? That happen in March or? Like, what would you want the deadline?
Maybe an April deadline,
End of
Yeah.
April?
That sounds right.
Okay. April 13th.
so that we can start getting on a cycle where it's happening before. So it's not like already after the start of the year. So then maybe we can move to the fall for the Jan through June.
Mhm.
So we can
Okay.
start on a cycle. Yep.
So have it like 6 months separated, basically. Okay,
Like it.
cool.
I think it's the most equitable way to.
How's it feeling for everybody? Cool. Great. Thanks for going over that with us, Abby. Anything else on that before I move on?
No, I think, so we're changing the budget narrative to increase the words. We're adding that applicants must comply with all other city requirements. We, just talked about the 2 different rounds of funding. And we accept the changes that Jolene made and we're good to go ahead and publish.
Yeah, I
the
think, I thought
application.
her edits to this are great.
Yeah,
Really improved it.
thanks to Jolene.
Oh, and some kind of communications plan for
Yes.
release.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Right, so our last item on the agenda is consideration of a partnership with Brenda Clark for a line dancing event at Stonehorse Green on October 25th,
Saturday.
coming up Saturday.
Yes, so, Brenda had reached out to me a couple of months ago. I think it was in August, and she was interested in hosting an event, and I gave her a deadline because I said you need to get approval for a partnership. And I said, otherwise, I think the CDA is going to cancel their meeting. And I didn't get it in time for the deadline. The meeting was canceled. I think she got me information a couple months or a couple weeks after that. And I said, okay, well, we're going to either be meeting on the 9th of this month or the 20th to be determined. The 20th seems really late if you're looking at having your event on the 25th. And she said, well, we're planning on having like an after event that would happen at Compadres nearby. So she was gonna go ahead and promote that, but wanted still to be able to use the Stonehorse Green space as well. And she had reached out to all of her line dancing instructors. She was really excited. She talked about how Beyonce's country album had like really increased the demand and excitement around line dancing. And so she wanted to be able to host something at the green space. I clarified with her that usually the CDA is partnering with an organization or even a business, but not an individual. And I said, would you want this to come under an organization or business? She said, no, it's just me hosting it. So I told her that I would put it on the agenda and get your thoughts on whether or not you're willing to.
Can you tell me who she is?
Let me just tell you everything that I know, which is not a ton.
Sorry, is she asking for funding assistance? or
No.
Just like permission to use the space?
Yeah, right.
But it's
Just
not,
have to partner with, it has to be a city event somehow.
Yes, so in order to advertise an event to the public and quote unquote reserve the space, but it's not actually reserved, it's still open to the public. They have to apply to partner with the CDA. So let me tell you more about what she gave me. Her initial outreach was on August 25th. And the summary of the proposal is Fall Family Hoedown, a social gathering at which lively folk dancing takes place per dictionary.com. Country line dance instruction and dance. The date time to be determined, but she was looking at that point at October 18th or 25th. She was thinking 1 to 2:30 or 3 p.m. to allow the vendors nearby to benefit and perhaps invite attendees to enjoy lunch beforehand in downtown. People can come and go as they please. She asked for permission to decorate with straw bales, and I told her no, because we had an issue previously with straw bales killing grass and having to get it reseeded. She said the sound system would be needed. She thought the Stonehorse Green would be the appropriate location because it was home to the first livery stable, and line dancing is associated with horses and boots. Country line dancing has had a resurgence of late with music and fashion, possibly propelled by Beyonce's American Music Award for top country song Texas Hold'em. So then we asked her, who is the organization, who is the host, how many people are expected. She said Brenda Clark, there is no organization. She said that 20 to 30 people have shown an interest in attending an event like this. This does not include random attendees, like people who are passing by and decide to join.
Tell me the number again.
25 to 30. We asked her vendors are referenced, what type of vendors. She said that she had spoken with a clothing vendor across the street, so one of the storefronts, and they said that they liked events being held in the day when their businesses are open, but she wasn't bringing in vendors. Let's see.
Can I, because I have 2 minutes before I have to get to
yeah.
parks,
Sorry.
can I interrupt and just say, this sounds like something she needs to work on for next year?
I think this is too short of notice. I think that this is like, has she gone through the permitting process? Again, like, we don't have precedent about individuals. What is their insurance coverage for this event? Like, none of that is clear. And I think also because it is such a late date, there's not effective promotions, and
Right.
and Stonehorse Green has been doing such a good job of advanced promotions. I want to start a precedent of like late minute, like it's also about the brand and the look and feel of.
And I don't want to tell her how to run the event. I'm just wondering if it would be a perfect idea to have it inside Compadres, because they have a lovely big space in the middle there.
Yep. And I think that that is her plan, and my understanding is she's already set that part of it up.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's a type of event that could be really like
I love the
family
idea.
friendly and fun.
Yeah.
for it. But yeah, I would also want to have more information about the people, the person we're working with, just to make sure we're not partnering with someone who we don't know all the details.
To respect Alder Nelson's time, do we need a motion here?
Actually, I'm just gonna have Alder Crow finish the meeting if he's
Okay.
willing.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Have fun at parks. Yeah, I guess I would just say like all of the issues of concern that you all have raised were the same questions that we had as staff. And we fully agree, like it could be a really cool event, but we just wanted to understand more. And it was kind of like we were asking questions and it was taking a while to get the information back. And so I think I would rather invite her to come and talk with the CDA about the event directly.
Mhm. And teach us how to line dance.
I know, because it does sound really fun. We've had a couple of like dance instructor led things with Francis Medrano at the space before, and it was very fun. Like all the kids and like he was directing and it was a good time. So
Do you want a motion?
Sure.
Yes. Okay, is there a motion?
Would the motion have to be in the affirmative and then we vote it down? Is that? Or do you
you
allow?
could say, I think you could
No, 'cause-
say.
yeah.
Request that the applicant come forward for a different date in 2026 and provide more information.
So I will make the motion that, we're unable to partner for October 25th, 2025. However, we invite the applicant to come forward at a future meeting to discuss planning such an event for 2026.
I'll second.
By Jen, second by Kelly. To ask the applicant to come visit us before planning an event in 2026. All those in favor, or any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. I think that was
And
the
then-
last agenda item.
The meeting is adjourned.
7:01 PM. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
for
all.
when.